Welcome back to another episode of Undiagnosed Baddie, your favorite daily 10-minute podcast, y'all. We are doing this motherfucker. Like, I am doing this, and even on my bad days, like, I've had a few low energy, low emotional days these last few days, but I've still been getting up and doing these episodes. Now, I ain't gonna hold you. Is Undiagnosed Baddie daily? We're doing these episodes, right? Sometimes they are daily, sometimes they are batched. And so, what you'll never know is which one is which, really, because I had this dress on yesterday. And yesterday it was a live episode. Today is a live episode. So you'll never know which ones are live and which ones are batch, but I'm going to be honest with you. Um, when it is a heavy week with, busy week, I'll batch some things, but that doesn't take away from showing up 365 days out of this year. Nobody has ever done this, and I keep saying that. Nobody has ever done 365 episodes in a year, a daily podcast, besides, sports stats or the new, like, I'm not the news. I'm not, it's not giving that. So still, again, nobody has ever done this. Shout out to me. I steamed crabs today for the first time in the oven. Notice I didn't say for the first time, pay attention, but in the oven. And I just went to work with the seasoning, the beer, you steam it in beer. Baby, I seen somebody put chicken broth in their steam. And I was like, that's odd. Like, why would you want your seafood to taste like land food? That's defeating the purpose. But everybody from Maryland already know, you know what I'm saying? Like, excuse me. Excuse me, y'all. It's slipping back. Forehead look big on screen. But everybody already know if you really cooking, you use the beer, you use, whatever. Anyway, it was really good. I had bought some fresh ingredients, and so I poured the beer in there. I pre-cooked my egg and potatoes and sausage, but it wasn't just any sausage. It was the Old Bay sausage. If you're from Maryland, you already know the Old Bay sausage comes out in Safeways, usually Safeways only. If anybody else has it, drop it in the comments. And no, you know who else had it? Aldi. Aldi had it. And you know what else Aldi had? They didn't have Obey. However, they had something called seafood seasoning, and it tastes just like Obey. So I had to try it. I was like, what is seafood seasoning? But of course, they can't say Obey. But I was like, why wouldn't every store in Maryland carry Obey? Like, that's a staple in the household, as much as a staple as a trash can is. Like, hello. Pour the beer batter in, all my seasoning, stirring it up real good, minced garlic, of course your parsley, endless butter, my shrimp, and put everything in there. And I just let it, do its thing in the oven. Of course, you cover it with foil, and it turned out to be amazing. And I think that's the way I'll do it from now on, like just putting it in the oven. It was so much easier to me. And as far as cleanup as well, like I used a big foil pan, so I didn't have to really clean up a pot. Put the foil back on, it's done. And so yeah, I appreciate all of the TikTok and shorts. um I do love long form content. I am going to get into, y'all watch a show with me. Watch a show with me. I know people be corny. I know people do cults and stuff like that. I am going to watch all 46 parts. All 46 parts are each 30 minutes long of the Nature Boy documentary that's on YouTube. I am going to watch that, and I am going to be discussing that as I watch it. That's going to take up a lot of my time. A lot of my time. However, I'm going to take notes. We are going to discuss. So let's get out. I'll say a few little whatever, and we'll get into that. I don't know if it's gonna be here on Undiagnosed Baddie, if it's just gonna be random YouTube videos where I just talk, or shorts, but we're gonna get into that, so y'all watch that with me. Also, y'all know I always ask y'all a question. Let's go back to my seafood. How do you all prepare your crab legs? Now today I wasn't feeling crabs. I wasn't feeling like a picky today. I want to get right to business, crack it, dip it, eat it and call it a day. That's how I was feeling. But how do y'all cook y'all's? What seasoning do you like on yours? We know the parsley is just for looks or stuff like that. Do you use, like I said, I use beer. That lady used chicken broth. You know, it wasn't even stock, it was like broth. And I was just like, ooh. But anyway, how do y'all cook y'all seafood when you get to seafood? And do you even eat it? Because I know people have allergies. And if you have an allergy, where are you from? I think it's interesting that when you start learning people's allergies, when you start learning where they're from, and when you start learning their age. Like there's people in their 30s and 40s that have peanut allergies. Okay, cool, 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 cool. But there are children that are like 9 and younger, and the population of children that have a high that have a peanut allergy is way higher than the generation above them, and then my generation. So it's just like, what was going on, what were in the shots, what was in the food, what was in the water, and you start paying attention to stuff. That's the scientist in me. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't know, I like to pay attention to stuff like that. I like to pay attention to how people look, how they talk because of how they look, and just different. I do my own analysis on a whole bunch of stuff, and sometimes other people pay attention to certain things, and sometimes and sometimes people don't. But you know, like even with me and my homegirl, we was talking, we noticed that sometimes parents that had their kids when they were like 15 and 16, their children their children tend to look a particular way than people who had their kids that were older. And I'm not gonna say if it's good or bad or this or that. What I'm gonna say is they just look different. So you have to start paying, well, not you have to, but we pay attention to certain things because we're like, well, why do they think this way? Why do they walk that way? Why are all of the things? And you start, boom, who's who? It's us. We are the World Health Organization ticking shit off on charts, and just what's this, what's that, what's that. And it makes it very interesting. But when you really start to research people, you really start to understand why they move the way they move, why they think the way they think, and why they look the way they look, like the size of their ears, the size of their head. Everything plays a factor into that. And I think it's just so interesting, especially when I had to learn a lot of that stuff, abnormalities, my first year becoming a mortician. That was one of the classes. You have to know what is going on by the spine, and I always joke around and say, well, I'm a doctor of, you know, of death or whatever, because we had to learn so much. The difference is my clients are dead, so I didn't have the liability of having to keep a human alive, right? So we learn a lot of the same things, but just not in specialty, right? So yeah, there's that on that. But I do want to say this. Starting out a new week, I'm trying, what is not, Pluto is in retrograde until October 15th, I think. And Pluto being in retrograde, so when Mercury is in retrograde, and I hate when corny bitches be like, is Mercury in Gatorade, is Mercury in microbates, like that shit is so corny to me. But anyway, Mercury deals with technology. So technology like your computers, your laptops, your phones, and miscommunication, right? So it'd be like, shut the fuck up. And that also includes contracts and deals, and just whatever. Pluto being in retrograde has to deal with like emotions, and some people might be like, yeah, this is not it. I'm switching my whole vibe, my whole, and as old people say, my whole stilo up. And it's one of those things with yourself, not the outside. You either stay where you are, which means you're going to continue on that timeline, or you jump a timeline and you just do bigger and better things. And I have been feeling the impact of Pluto being in retrograde. As I said earlier, it's just been a few emotional days, but what I do want to say is that I move forward Still I rise. We do all of the great things because that is what I am. I am great. I am a God. And I hope y'all are truly appreciating everything. This episode was really about food and getting some seafood recipes up off of y'all. It's the summertime. Put them below.